All right, so Korea. Landing in Korea was exciting. I got the idea to teach English in Korea because I had some friends staying in the hotel I was in when I was there for 2 months. They were there for a few weeks, called Joe and Rana, who had taught English in Korea for like a year and a half or something. And they said I could just show up and get a job. So I showed up there, and that was exciting. Landing in, looking out the window at Seoul, seeing all of the. Seoul has like the 10th biggest city in the world. It has like 15 million people or something like that, and but it's really not that big in size because everybody lives in these skyscrapers, in these track skyscrapers. But I landed and I asked people where north was. I just wanted to know which way north was because I knew where the airport was according to the town I wanted to ride my bike in when I could have taken the subway, but I guess I didn't know that I could take a bike on the subway. I wanted to ride my bike in. Nobody knew which direction north was. And I guess somehow I found out and oriented myself and rode my bike into the center of town to like smack dab in the center. I can't remember where the subway was, but it's like right near where the palace is. And stayed at a hotel for a couple days, and then I locked my bike actually with a really cheap lock for 4 days in the middle of the place, and nobody cut the lock. It fell down, but that's about it. So it's a really safe place. And it was stupid of me to lock my bike outside like that, but then I found another hotel to stay in. I got a room, and definitely a different living situation there than I've ever seen in my life because like I think I was paying $130 a month, but I was living right smack dab in the middle of town in a hotel that like you go in the room and it's kind of like traditional Chinese or Japanese, Korean kind of architecture. You'd have like a house that's around, then you have a central like I guess patio area where there's you can look up in the sky. So if it rains, it would get that wet. But then they have the awning that goes over, and along the edges, you'd have these tiny little rooms that are like smaller than this room I'm in, like maybe as big as a third of the size of this room, tiny. And got one of those rooms, and it was basically big enough for like a single bed, and then put your clothes and stuff over here. And I was there for a couple weeks, and then some girl left, and I took her room upstairs in the corner. So I had two windows in the corner. It was a smaller room, but it was cool to have circulation. And I saw these Christians. They were like American and Canadian Christians. Lots of Christians there because there's 40,000 American troops living there in Seoul in like their own America. It's this little town in the middle of Seoul. And if you walk by it, it looks like America. You'd have streets and houses like American everything. I should have done the tour of that place. But so I guess a lot of those people were like Christians, and so these Christians tried to approach me, these girls, and said, "Oh, you should join our church." And then she said, "Oh yeah, you should get a job at my hagwon, I think they're called." And so I went over to her hagwon, and I guess it's where they teach. It was teaching like 5 and 6 year olds. There was a class open, and I was really excited about doing that, so I decided to do that. And the lady at first said she'd pay me 1.8 million, and then she said 1.5, and I came in third, and then she said 1.1. I was like, then I came in again, and I said, all right, I'll do it for 1.5. I should have said 1.8 what she originally said, but she's like, oh, I can't do that. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll leave. And then she's okay, we can do that. But I was kind of thinking about doing some other institute, and the woman at the other institute teaching adults actually begged me on the phone when I was in front of the lady at the Hagwon. She said, please, but I decided to go and teach the Hagwon because I like little kids, they're cute. So I did that for like 5.5 months. I did that in the morning, and then in the afternoon I taught at an affiliated school teaching like 7th and 8th graders who were fun, and then these 15-year-olds who were like totally depressed. But teaching these little kids until 1 was really fun. They're so full of energy. And I got to play with them for like an hour at their playtime. And then I taught them also English, like some special group. And I noticed that the younger Koreans are, the better they speak English. And but I also did a couple of private classes that I was connected to by actually I think Rana from Nepal, and then some other people, and doing some kids. So I managed to stay pretty busy. And I was also selling cigars on the weekends in the pedestrian mall near where I lived, and then some other pedestrian malls. And I guess for one of their holidays, I was doing pretty well, actually. So anyway, I was there like 5.5 months. Ended up saving money. I think it was like $6,700. Ended up actually saving. I don't know how much you can expect to make there. I didn't make so much money, but it was fun. Korea is very. It's kind of like, I know nobody would ever. This is kind of a weird way to describe it, but it's kind of like a utopia in that it's very peaceful. You can be out at night and never worry about getting mugged or robbed or anything. But it's funny because I was selling cigars, so I watched them, and they would get really drunk on this stuff called soju, where they couldn't even walk. They'd have to carry each other home. And one night I drank a bottle of that stuff. It's like less than $1 for a bottle, and I totally blacked out. I woke up on a pool of vomit like at 3 o'clock in the next afternoon, and I came downstairs and all of my roommates were laughing at me, and they said I like took my pants off and like tried to like dance naked in front of a bunch of like Koreans or something, and then I fell into a bush completely out of it, and I didn't remember any of that. But so I didn't drink soju after that. I heard also like a little bit before I went there, they found like 5 like top executives dead with a bunch of bottles of empty sojus. So I don't know why they like that stuff, but the food there is really good because it's like they fry squid right in front of you with vegetables, so it's delicious. It's only like $3 for a meal, and filling and healthy, and everybody there is really healthy. They're all thin, but all of the all the fast food places like McDonald's and Burger King and those kinds of places have a lot of business, which is interesting because the Korean food is way better. But for the first 2.5 months I was there, I was also hanging out with those fundamentalist Christians. I went to their church with them, and they were trying to give me this whole lecture list of like teachings, and they're really nice, really friendly. But I guess they didn't realize that I wasn't going to just like say yes to everything they said and believe and like I guess you have to get baptized, and if you don't get baptized, then everybody is bound for burn in hell. And so at the end of the 2.5 months, I tried to actually have a conversation with them, and then they said that they don't philosophize, and that if they couldn't convert me, then it was no use. And they didn't want to talk to me about like actually philosophize with me. So it was basically like 2.5 months of me just kind of going like this and listening to them say the same thing over again. So if there had been a group of like 4 of them trying to convert me, one guy would say something for 10 minutes, the other guy, and then the other guy, and then they were like ran out of time. And one night, I guess it was like the final night. It was like the last time they were going to try and convert me. They turned the heat up, and they got really like intense and like started like yelling and crying and stuff. And I was in an air-conditioned room, but my hair was totally sopping wet, like pegged to my forehead. I was dripping sweat off my chin, down my head. Somehow they had gotten the stress or something up so much that I was just, it was kind of interesting phenomenon. And then I came in like 2 weeks later, but they didn't want to talk, so I guess I figured out what they're all about. But they're nice people. So I kind of had lots of different groups that I hung out with. It was them, and then I was hanging out at the cyber cafe, and it was all the same group of Americans who would go there. I guess that was before people had their own laptops. So that was fun. And my brother visited me for a week too, and we both had bikes, so we rode around and checked out all this stuff. There's this big mountain right next to where we were living in the middle of town that we hiked up to the top of. And so after 5.5 months, I left. I think most people who go there are there for like at least a year, but that was enough for me. And I took the plane to Bangkok.